Good evening, Amalma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. On tonight's headlines. Japan landed on the moon. They became the fifth nation to achieve this incredible feat tonight with their Moon Sniper spacecraft touching down after a tense 20-minute descent. However, their celebration is tempered by a technical issue. The Moon Sniper solar batteries are malfunctioning, giving it only hours of power before darkness. After weeks of tension, President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu held their first call in a while. While still far apart on many issues, Biden expressed cautious optimism that Israel could ultimately accept some form of Palestinian state after the war with Hamas subsides. But Netanyahu remains opposed to a two-state solution, but has shifted his focus to driving Hamas forces further south in Gaza. The Arctic cold wave gripping the U.S. shows no signs of letting up. The death toll has risen to at least 59, with over 100 million people still under winter weather alerts. Temperatures are plummeting far below average, with dangerous wind chills stretching from Montana to Florida. Aviation safety concerns take center stage again as an Atlas Air Boeing 747 cargo plane made an emergency return to Miami International Airport following an engine problem shortly after takeoff. Cell phone video captured the plane soaring across the sky with what appears to be a trail of fire behind it. Good evening and welcome to our top story tonight. A Japanese robotic spacecraft has successfully touched down on the moon, marking a historic moment for the nation and making it only the fifth country to achieve a soft landing on our lunar neighbor.
Now approaching altitude 5 km.
2024年1月20日、日本標準時午前0時20分に小型月着陸実証機スリムが月面へ着陸したことを確認いたしました。詳細については国中理事からお願いいたします。
However, the mission's future hangs in the balance due to a critical issue with its solar power system. Meet Slim, the smart lander for investigating moon. This intrepid robot gently settled on the lunar surface near an equatorial crater earlier today, fulfilling a decades-long dream for Japan's space agency, JAXA. The feat signifies a major advancement in the country's space exploration capabilities and places them among the elite group of nations that have mastered the challenging feat of landing on the moon.
Now starting the vertical descent.
But the celebrations are tempered by a serious technical hurdle. Slim's solar panels, unfortunately, are not generating electricity, leaving the robot dependent on its batteries, which have a limited lifespan.
探査機は着陸後正常に通信を日本局に伝えております。また地球からのコマンドも正確に受信をしてそれに探査機が反応しておるということも確認ができております。ただし太陽電池の発電ができていないという状況が今確認されております。現状は電力が発生できておりませんので搭載されておるバッテリーで運用がされております。
Once they run out, Slim will fall silent, unable to receive commands or communicate with Earth. JAXA engineers are in a race against time to salvage the mission. They're prioritizing critical tasks such as turning off heaters, capturing images, and retrieving valuable data on the landing software's performance. While Slim's future remains uncertain, a glimmer of hope exists. The sun's angle on the moon will change over time, and there's a chance the solar panels could eventually become properly positioned to receive sunlight and revive the robot. Despite the setback, JAXA officials maintained that the landing itself was a resounding success. Slim successfully deployed 2 small rovers and achieved a highly accurate touchdown within 100 meters of its target, showcasing the effectiveness of its innovative precision navigation technologies. An Atlas Air Boeing 747 cargo plane made an emergency return to Miami International Airport due to an engine problem that occurred shortly after takeoff. According to reports, the plane was headed to Puerto Rico when it experienced an engine malfunction, causing the crew to follow standard procedures and safely return to MIA. Unfortunately, there were no injuries reported. Post-flight inspections revealed a softball-sized hole above the second engine, which was discovered by the Federal Aviation Administration. The National Transportation Safety Board has opened an investigation into the case. Atlas Air, which started operations in 1992, said in a statement on its website that it runs the world's biggest fleet of Boeing 747 freighter aircraft. The airline has pledged to investigate the cause of the incident. This incident comes at a time when Boeing is already under intense scrutiny due to recent issues with its 737 MAX aircraft. Earlier this month, a similar scare involving a panel detachment forced an emergency landing of a 737 MAX, leading to the grounding of numerous jets. Boeing's manufacturing practices and production lines are now under the FAA's microscope. We also have a dramatic story to bring you out of Virginia. A small passenger plane reportedly made an emergency landing on a highway, but thankfully no one was injured. The incident occurred just after 1 p.m. local time when a Southern Airways Express flight bound for Pennsylvania experienced trouble after takeoff from Dulles International Airport. The pilot safely landed the aircraft on the westbound lanes of Loudoun County Parkway, just a few miles from the airport.
Yeah, so I was driving down Loudoun County Parkway here and going to get lunch. Heard a loud noise and thought it was my car like blowing up or something. And then I look up and there's a plane 20 feet above me landing, and it landed 30 feet in front of me. And then it went underneath the traffic lights. Then it was a smooth landing, and then it got squirrely right over here and crashed into the guardrail.
Despite the hair-raising ordeal, the only damage reported was to a single guardrail. No vehicles were involved and airport operations remain unaffected. However, authorities are investigating what caused the close call. The plane, a single-engine Cessna Caravan, had 7 people on board, including 5 passengers and 2 crew members. The Federal Aviation Administration and National Transportation Safety Board are now looking into the incident. The airline CEO praised the pilot's quick thinking and skill in a statement, saying, "We are immensely grateful to our pilots for putting the safety of our passengers first. This is a reminder of the incredible training and professionalism our pilots possess." A deadly Arctic cold wave continues to grip the United States, claiming at least 59 lives and leaving over 100 million people under winter weather alerts. Now, this Friday, the icy grip extends from Montana to Florida, with temperatures in southern hotspots like Shreveport, Jackson, Birmingham, and Atlanta plummeting to the low 20s or even teens. The freezing threat isn't limited to the north. Wind chill alerts blanket much of the country, and freeze warnings remain in effect across the South and Gulf Coast. Memphis, Tennessee has shut down all state offices due to hazardous conditions, urging residents to stay home as icy roads create the worst travel situation of the week-long cold snap. Of the 59 confirmed cold-related deaths since last Friday, nearly 20 occurred in Tennessee alone. Oregon, Illinois, Mississippi, Washington State, and Kentucky each reported multiple fatalities. This widespread cold snap is a rare and dangerous event, with temperatures plunging far below average across much of the country. The National Weather Service warns of potential hypothermia and frostbite for those venturing outdoors in the affected areas. And it seems that extreme weather in Northern Europe has caused a lot of transportation problems for many people. Heavy snow has grounded flights, caused traffic jams, and stalled public transport in several countries. Thomas I. Likeness reports.
Heavy snow in Scandinavia shut down air travel in Oslo, Norway for several hours. By mid-afternoon, the airport reopened. Most buses in the Norwegian capital remained parked because of the heavy snow, and rail service to large parts of the country had to be cancelled. The weather created similar problems in neighboring Sweden. In Germany, hundreds of flights had to be cancelled at the country's airports because of the dramatic weather conditions. By early afternoon, freezing rain prevented departures, although landings were still possible. The freezing rain also made for treacherous conditions for pedestrians. While kids had fun sliding on the slippery streets like you see here, adults gingerly navigated their way on ice-covered sidewalks. In some parts of Germany, the weather prompted school closures. Ice and snow stalled traffic in northern France. On this highway, drivers found themselves waiting for more than 2 hours before traffic got moving again. And while the weather created problems for many, the snow didn't bother everyone. In Brussels, tourists seemed to embrace it. American Tiffany Tran says she and others from the U.S. found it delightful.
We didn't expect to have to see the snow, but I mean, it's just amazing. Because they came from Arizona, we're from Georgia. We rarely see snow up there, so this is like amazing. We were like, wow.
For others like Gabriel Creros, well, he says he's not bothered at all by the white stuff.
Snow for me is something really different, because I come from Brazil. And I really enjoy it, and something good. It's different from, the most of the things.
But when you come from a tropical country, weather like this can be somewhat daunting. Gisela Nerfauzi is from Indonesia, and she says the snowstorm caught her by surprise.
Not what I expect, but it's still beautiful. Yeah, it's so cold for me.
By the weekend, things should moderate in Europe. There is milder weather in the forecast, but you know what they say? Whatever the weather, we'll weather the weather, whether we like it or not. Thomas Eichner's Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke about Gaza Friday in their first conversation for nearly a month, amid reports of tensions between the leaders.
President Biden had a chance to speak this morning with Prime Minister Netanyahu. The President and the Prime Minister discussed ongoing efforts to secure the release of all remaining hostages that are being held by Hamas. The two leaders also reviewed the situation in Gaza and the shift to targeted operations that will enable the flow of increasing amounts of humanitarian assistance while keeping the military pressure on Hamas and its leaders. The President also discussed his vision for a more durable peace and security for Israel, fully integrated within the region, and a two-state solution with Israel's security guaranteed.
The relationship between the leaders has been showing signs of strain lately. Netanyahu has repeatedly refused Biden's calls for Palestinian sovereignty, which is believed by the U.S. president to be the key to unlocking a durable peace in the Middle East through the oft-cited elusive two-state solution. Netanyahu said on Thursday that his country must have security control over all the territory west of the Jordan River, and that he had made this clear to Israel's American friends.
לכן לא נתפשר על פחות מניצחון מוחלט. ניצחון מוחלט מחייב את חיסול ראשי הטרור והשמדת היכולות הצבאיות והשלטוניות של החמאס. ניצחון מוחלט מחייב את השבת חטופינו הביתה. ניצחון מוחלט מחייב שעזה תהיה מפורזת בשליטה ביטחונית מלאה של ישראל ושליטה ישראלית על כל מה שנכנס לעזה. אלה הם גם תנאי יסוד ליום שאחרי בכל הסדר בעתיד הנראה לעין. עם הסדר, בלי הסדר, מדינת ישראל חייבת לשלוט ביטחונית על כל השטח מערבית לירדן. זה תנאי הכרחי, וזה מתנגש עם רעיון הריבונות, מה לעשות? את האמת הזאת אני אומר לידידינו האמריקנים, ואני גם בלבתי את הניסיון לכפות עלינו מציאות שתפגע בביטחון ישראל.
Washington, meanwhile, stressed in return that it believes creation of a Palestinian state is the only way to guarantee Israel's long-term security.
The president still believes in the promise and the possibility of a two-state solution. He recognizes that's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of leadership there in the region, particularly on both sides of the issue. And the United States stands firmly committed to eventually seeing that outcome. Right now, and we're talking to them actively about post-conflict Gaza and what governance there needs to look like and the importance of an independent Palestinian state for long-term security, not just for the Palestinian people, but for the Israeli people as well. Currently, of course, we're rightly focused, as I said in the opening statement, on making sure Israel has what it continues to have what it needs to defend itself.
One day earlier at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken renewed his call for a pathway to Palestinian state.
You're talking about a government, and a structure of governance that maximizes the ability of the authority to actually deliver what the Palestinian people want and need. But it also has to be able to operate in what you might call a permissive environment. In other words, with the support of, with the help of Israel, not with its active opposition. Because even the most effective authority is going to have a lot of trouble if it's got the active opposition of any Israeli government. But
Netanyahu maintained that a prime minister in Israel should be able to say no, even to our best friends, to say no when necessary and to say yes if possible.
ראש ממשלה בישראל צריך להיות מסוגל להגיד לא גם לטובי הידידים שלנו, להגיד לא כשצריך ולהגיד כן שאפשר.
Hundreds of Israelis in Tel Aviv marked the first birthday of Kiffer Bibas, the youngest hostage to be kidnapped by Hamas militants on the October 7 attack, along with his 4-year-old brother Ariel and their parents Yarden and Sherry Bibas.
It feels crazy because we actually celebrating a birthday and we did such a big event and so many things for kids that not here, and he doesn't know that we're doing all this thing for him, so it's mind-blowing, you know. I don't know what went to their mind when they kidnapped him, because what you have to do with a baby. And I don't know what they're going through with their mind right now when they hold him, because he can't do you no harm, you know. He can defend himself. He didn't attack anybody.
He is the youngest hostage, now captive by Hamas. That's why. Like, can you imagine yourself like a hostage, like 1-year-old hostage? So today we came here to celebrate his first birthday. I wish the second one he would be here to celebrate with him. I really hope he's alive.
Kiffer Bibas was born on January 18 and if still alive could be celebrating his first birthday.
It's really like important for all of us to be here, and like we really wish he's still alive, and we really wish he will be released like now. He needs to go home.
In November, Hamas broadcast a video announcing the death of the baby, his brother and mother in an Israeli bombing, they claimed, but there has been no confirmation from Israeli officials, and relatives are still clinging to the hope that they're not dead. Amidst escalating Middle East turmoil, can the region navigate the storm, reconcile conflicting geopolitical forces, and achieve short-term calm? Discussions at the World Economic Forum centered on growing anxieties about a wider regional conflict spiraling out of control.
I'm extremely worried. I think we have both seen spread and escalation. You know, if we look at the situation since the 7th of October, we have seen what we before the 7th of October would have called a warlike situation between Israel and Hezbollah. We have seen both the spread and escalation in Syria. We have seen dozens of attacks on US positions inside of Syria, from what the US claim are Iranian-supported groups. Of course, Iranians are very clear they have nothing to do with them. Then we have seen a few US attacks against these groups. Then we have seen some of these groups attacking Israeli positions in occupied Golan. And we have seen Israeli attacks against these groups and some Syrian government positions in Syria, and increased Israeli attacks on different airports and positions inside of Syria. So the war is spreading. It's been an escalation. The question is now, can we contain it?
Right.
My opinion, but this is an opinion, and it's to be challenged, is that I do believe the Iranians do not want further escalation. I think they're playing with fire. I think it's pretty clear Hezbollah do not want a full-scale war. Will the Israelis stop in Gaza, or will it develop further? Again, my personal opinion, this is also very clear that the Americans do not want this, but the question is, can the Israelis be contained? So I think for this to happen, we need a quick end to the war in Gaza. We need humanitarian assistance, and then we need to develop a strategy that is not only, and I know this is a tall order, but a strategy that do not only include Israel, Palestine, but the broader region. You know, I'm going to say I'm dealing with the Iranians more or less on a daily basis. I do believe that obviously there is a very close relationship between Hezbollah and Iran. I think Iran accepts that Hezbollah is in its own right also a political entity in Lebanon that needs to make its own decisions.
Right.
But I do believe where we are now, today, this is a decision whether to go to a full-scale war or not. It's not a decision Hezbollah can make alone.
Right.
And that has to do, in my opinion, with the fact, of course, that Hezbollah is also, for the Iranians, a deterrence.
Yeah.
And the question is, when do you use and when do you not use that deterrence?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, tensions are mounting in the Red Sea as Yemen's Houthi rebels claim a new attack on a U.S. vessel early Friday. And this comes after the U.S. launched strikes against Houthi targets in response to their recent attacks on shipping in the region.
This morning, U.S. forces conducted 3 successful self-defense strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. This is the 4th preemptive action that the U.S. military has taken in the past week against Houthi missile launchers that were ready to launch attacks.
Houthi media claims their forces successfully targeted the Cam Ranger, a U.S.-owned tanker with missiles, but the U.S. military said the missiles missed the ship entirely.
I can't say that they can't, but they certainly have less capabilities than they did yesterday or the day before that. Our initial assessments are that we've been very successful and that we've been able to destroy pretty much all of the targets that we hit. So again, in terms of their precision and targeting, we have seen that these are not precise missile launches. They often land, they often land in the area where there are many ships. We can't say that. Sometimes we can't say who exactly or what ship they are exactly targeting. So I think there is some imprecision when it comes to the actual targeting of a specific vessel.
In a separate development, the U.S. confirmed it carried out airstrikes on Thursday, destroying a couple of anti-ship missiles that the U.S. believed were poised to attack vessels in the southern Red Sea.
This morning, U.S. Central Command forces conducted strikes on 2 Houthi anti-ship missiles that were aimed into the southern Red Sea. Also last night, the U.S. Central Command conducted strikes on 14 Houthi missiles at over a dozen locations. These missiles on launch rails presented an imminent threat to merchant vessels and U.S. Navy ships in the region and could have been fired at any time. The defensive actions this morning and last night were taken in accordance with the standing orders of the Secretary and the President, reflecting the inherent right to defend ourselves from attack or threat of imminent attack.
Now, these escalating tensions have prompted several major shipping companies to halt their operations in the area, raising concerns about disruption to global trade. The World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos witnessed the buzzing of the term artificial intelligence among the world leaders and corporate bosses. The breathtaking advancements in generative AI have caught the attention of the elite crowd, with many looking to leverage its promise while treading cautiously to minimize its risks. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella made an appearance to discuss AI's geopolitical importance.
I mean, I could point to all the obvious lessons that you don't want to leave important but not urgent problems out there hanging. And, we had known that our board had gotten too small and we knew that we didn't have the level of experience we needed. But last year was such a wild year for us in so many ways that we sort of just neglected it. I think one more important thing, though, is as the world gets closer to AGI, the stakes, the stress, the level of tension that's all going to go up. And for us, this was a microcosm of it, but probably not the most stressful experience we ever face. And one thing that I've sort of observed for a while is every one step we take closer to very powerful AI, everybody's character gets like plus 10 crazy points. It's a very stressful thing, and it should be, because we're trying to be responsible about very high stakes.
With the world grappling with AI's rapid development and its implications, officials from China to Europe stake their positions on AI's responsible development.
The guardrails that we're going to need. The UK also plays a very big role in global security. We need to be sure, as I was saying to Sam earlier this morning, that a rogue actor isn't going to be able to use AI to build nuclear weapons. So we need to have our eyes open, which is why the AI Safety Summit that Rishi Sunak organised at the end of last year was so important. But we need to do it in a light touch way, because we've just got to be a bit humble. There's so much that we don't know, and we need to understand the potential where this is going to lead us at a stage where no one really can answer that question.
While the EU has devised the world's first comprehensive AI rules, China has released interim regulations, and France played a crucial role in coordinating deepfake images and videos regulation.
And so there isn't an area, there's not an industry that's not going to be impacted, and we'll get into what does it mean to win. Because this will be a great technology if we can bring people along the journey, and we have to be able to reskill them. And we will not be able to reskill unless we think very differently about talent, both as a government and as a company. And we spend a lot of time, not because it just drives our business or that, but because fundamentally it's very basic. Well-paying jobs for people solve a lot of problems. And AI will create a lot of new jobs, but you won't be able to take the current people and put them in the jobs unless you partner together, government and companies, on reskilling.
Can you help make your accounts receivable? Can you help make your HR function? Can you help make your finance function? Can you help make invoicing, contracting, supply chain, ordering? As you go into each of these, it is not necessarily job displacement, but it is absolutely an impact. If you embrace AI, you're going to make yourself a lot more productive. If you do not, then probably I agree with the minister, you're going to find that you may not have a job. So you've got to embrace it. And as you go across these areas, and it is here and now, this is not 2-3 years out. You got to get going now.
As always, I'll end the day on a thoughtful note. Our ability to look back and smile at our past is proof that God's plan is to keep us moving forward. This has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay alert, stay informed, because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.